Hello there everybody, Scotia here with a very exciting video for today because finally, after weeks and months and just constant trolling and teases, finally we have had our first look at Mortal Kombat 12, or as it's now officially known, Mortal Kombat 1. So this video is going to be a fun one really. I'm just going to go over everything that we know so far from the trailer and the website and the FAQ that they put out, as well as just, kind of looking at the trailer and seeing some things that I kind of noticed that might be interesting, some theory stuff that I will probably be proved wrong on almost immediately, but we shall see. But yeah, it's just going to be a really fun video. I'm just so excited to finally be able to to actually talk about this game and just go into it and start covering it on this channel. The release date is September 19th, 2023, so only a few months away. I think about 4 months away or something like that. So it's going to be a lot of MK coverage on this channel coming up. I'm just so excited for that. So without further ado, let's begin. So right off the bat, we see somebody that at first I wasn't sure who this was. I actually thought at first this might be the Great Kung Lao, but after some kind of digging on the FAQ, and also just some guesswork for me, not to pat myself on the back, but before I even saw the FAQ, I kind of clocked as to who this was. But I'm pretty sure that this is Raiden, this character in white with the straw hat. Obviously the straw hat kind of gives it away, but this is a very different looking Raiden. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Raiden. This is a human Raiden. For those that don't know, at the end of MK11, Raiden basically gave his powers, his god powers to Liu Kang, which is why we now have Fire God Liu Kang and everything like that. So at the end of it, we were pretty much left with just this human Raiden that was kind of just looked weird. We've always seen Raiden with the blue eyes, and he was just normal. He was just a normal guy, and it was very weird. And I actually, I'll be the first to admit it. I actually didn't think they would continue with the human Raiden path in MK12. I really thought they would kind of go back on that and, just have Raiden be a god again and use thunder powers. But no, they're very much still clearly sticking with him being a human, which I respect. I think it's an interesting route. Definitely a good chance to do something new with Raiden. There is one thing I did notice. It was till afterwards, until I showed the trailer to my brother, I kind of noticed it. There's a part where Raiden meets with who I assume is Kung Lao, and they kind of square off. But as they square off, you actually see and hear thunder in the distance. So I think that's a decent tease that yes, this is indeed Raiden, but not only that, but he is going to still have his thunder powers, maybe not in the same way that he did in MK 1 to 11, but I still think Raiden is going to most likely play like Raiden. But yeah, I expect some differences. But yeah, so straight away, just a big change already. Raiden is human. He looks a lot younger as well, because obviously Raiden has always been a kind of older guy, but a very big change for Raiden, and honestly I'm completely for it. So speaking of Kung Lao, we do see him not long after we are first introduced to human Raiden, and I'm a bit kind of 50-50 on whether or not this is actually Kung Lao as we know him from MK2 onwards, or the Great Kung Lao that we saw at the end of MK11 Aftermath. My first and my kind of immediate thought is that this is the Great Kung Lao, because for two reasons mainly. The main one is because he was teased and he did show up at the end of Aftermath at the end of MK11. So you think, him being teased right at the end of MK11 Aftermath would, be a good sign that he would, be in MK12. And the second thing is he puts on a hat that is very reminiscent of, Kung Lao's usual, razor hat, but it's straw like Raiden's. So that as well makes me think that this is the Great Kung Lao, because, clearly he has the hat and he's, wearing stuff that is kind of similar to that stuff that we've seen Kung Lao wear in previous games. But obviously the addition of the straw hat kind of makes it a bit, But, this could also just be, regular Kung Lao as we've known him, and he's been brought into this new era, and the Great Kung Lao is, maybe we haven't seen him yet, maybe he's not in this game at all, who knows. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see kind of this Kung Lao. I personally think he's the Great Kung Lao, and I'm going to stick with that until we get confirmation otherwise. In the FAQ, they go over the cast of characters that, they've confirmed so far, which is basically everyone in this trailer plus Johnny Cage. And they just say Kung Lao, they don't say the Great Kung Lao, they just call him Kung Lao. So if this is the Great Kung Lao, then I think that's a pretty big deconfirmation for the Kung Lao that we've known since MK2, which I think is a shame, because I never was a huge fan of normal Kung Lao, but he was always just nice to have around, and I think it'd be a shame, because I do think in some ways he has been kind of rough by NetherRealm and the movies, so I think that would, it'd be a shame for Kung Lao, but at the same time, you know what, I'm open to seeing, them try something with the Great Kung Lao, see if he could be a bit more interesting, because the thing with Kung Lao is that he's in a lot of games, but he's just never really stood out to me personally, which is weird, because I actually mained him in MK11, but I still wouldn't call myself a big fan of Kung Lao. I just liked playing as him the most. I feel like I did the best with him in MK11. So, you know, I think that's interesting. I'm interested in seeing which Kung Lao this is, but I do think this is the Great Kung Lao, and personally, if I had to pick, I would hope it was the Great Kung Lao, just to see something new and just see a different direction with that. Obviously, he seems to have like a very close bond with Human Raiden. Obviously, like they're shown a lot together in the trailer, so that's cool. I definitely think the new main trio is going to be Fire God, Liu Kang, Raiden, and Kung Lao, whether it's great or otherwise. So I think that's very interesting. I'm very, you know, excited to see more of that. But yeah, so that's pretty much the Kung Lao segment of the trailer. Like, he shows up, obviously, but this is kind of like the focus on Human Raiden and Great Kung Lao at the start of the trailer. We then get to the segment of the trailer that I know all the Twitter stans would just go and apeshit over, because we get Katana and Mileena revealed, and I have to admit, it is hilarious to me that they've revealed Mileena so soon, like pretty much out the gate, along with, you know, everyone else. I know there's been that big argument from Mileena fans, like, oh, she's a staple of the series. I, personally speaking, never saw her that way. I always saw her as kind of like a kind of Kung Lao, not Baraka, but kind of like one of those kind of like MK characters that was introduced in 2 and it was very popular, but was always kind of like a backup to like the more popular characters like Katana and, you know, Liu Kang and stuff like that. That's how I always saw Mileena. But, you know, evidently her star power has risen since, you know, the days of MK9 and MKX. She's here, she's very much shown prominently with Katana. One thing I thought was interesting was, because the way this is all kind of framed and what Liu Kang is talking about in his narration is like, you know, my peaceful new era where, you know, either you can live in peace without the threat of being killed by these invading realms, or, you know, you can choose to fight, and etc. And obviously we get a shot here of Edenia just in complete, you know, peace and harmony, like Katana and Mileena being carried through the streets in, you know, this elegant chariot. So obviously things for Edenia going very well. I assume in this new realm, Edenia never got invaded, never got absorbed by Shao Kahn into Outworld. So, you know, very, very cool stuff. Very happy for Edenia. But the thing that's interesting here is that we see Mileena like quickly put on a mask and she still has the Tarkatan mouth. So obviously the way Mileena exists still happened. And I get the main reason for this is because, you know, if you give Mileena a normal mouth, like a big part of her kind of like uniqueness kind of goes away in the terms of her being a kind of like, in the lore, being a Katana / like Tarkatan hybrid. So I get why they've kept it, but I'm interested to see the reason for this, because, you know, this whole speech and everything going on, it very much seems like everything's happy, and, you know, all the bad stuff that happened to these characters in all the previous games, it doesn't happen in this new realm, because Liu Kang has written history in a way where everything's happy. But like, we still get little things like this where Mileena still, you know, has the Tarkatan mouth, so obviously her existence still seems to be the same, if that makes sense. So, but she also seems to be at least, maybe not friendly with Katana, but at least on, like, you know, they're not trying to kill each other. So, be interesting to see how that plays out. I would be interested to see if maybe Katana, you know, has maybe accepted Mileena as her sister, but, you know, there's maybe that little bit of like a sibling rivalry where it's more kind of like, again, not trying to kill each other, but they're not friends, but like there's still that kind of like relationship between the two, which I think is very interesting. So again, really interested to see what comes out of that. Yeah, it's cool that they're already confirmed, and I think it's funny that, you know, they've gotten the Mileena stands happy so that, you know, they're not going to get death threats for the next year until she eventually gets added. So I don't blame NRS for that, but other than that, I think they look good, so that's cool. We then get the part of the trailer that I think at this point has me kind of like the most interested in terms of like what I've been theorizing the most about and wondering about the most, because we finally see Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And what's interesting to me the most here is how they both look. Because to me, Scorpion looks really young here. Like, I don't know if it's just me or the way the CGI's been done, but Scorpion looks actually like pretty decently young here. And what jumped out to me almost straight away when I actually like freeze framed on the scene, which you'll be looking at now, this exact shot, is that Scorpion is human. He's not a Spectre. Because, you know, the big thing that is the big indicator of like Scorpion, his whole history of being in the series, was that when he was a Spectre, like when he was under the service of Quan Chi and all that, his eyes were like completely white. And that was a big thing. Like the three big kind of like undead kind of like statuses to be in the Mortal Kombat series have been Spectre, which was Scorpion, Wraith, which was a noob Cybot, and the Revenants, which, you know, half the cast were in MKX and 11. But Scorpion very much obviously has, you know, human eyes. He looks pretty young. One thing I also noticed as well is that on his left arm, I'm going to zoom in on it now, on his left arm he actually like has a tattoo, which is really weird. I don't know, you can't really tell what it looks like, but it's just like, it's very clearly like a black marking on his arm. It doesn't have to be a tattoo, it could be something else, it could be like a marking, like I said, or something, but it looks like a tattoo. And like, with Scorpion looking so young and having a tattoo, like, I'm just so interested in, like, what's going on here? Like, is this a very young Scorpion? Like, obviously he's human, so he didn't die, like, presumably, like, he wasn't killed by Sub-Zero, like, Bi-Han, but, like, it's just odd, like, will he have his fire powers? What's going on here? So I'm very interested in seeing what's going on with Scorpion here. And then we get Sub-Zero, and to me, again, I don't know if this is just the way the CGI's been done, if it's me, if it's a trick of the light, but I actually think Sub-Zero looks a bit older than Scorpion here. Not by much, but maybe like 10 or so years, but he does look a bit older here, and that combined with, you know, Scorpion looking so young and clearly still being alive, I'm kind of wondering, like, is this Bi-Han? Like, is this the original Sub-Zero, like, pre-Noob Saibot? Because if that is, that's crazy. Like, that would blow my mind more than anything, and that's why I'm saying, like, this is the part of the trailer that I'm the most, like, interested in theorizing over, because it's like, if this is actually Bi-Han, like, straight up, he's just the default Sub-Zero, like, that would literally be the first time since the original MK1, and I can kind of sort of believe it, like, this is MK1, you know, this is a complete reset, Scorpion is alive, this could kind of go in with, you know, what Liu Kang was saying about, like, this peaceful era. So yeah, I'm just so interested here, like, I really want confirmation, because this could easily be Kuai Liang, the Sub-Zero we've had is, you know, since MK2 onwards. I think it's very much easy, but it's the two things here, it's Scorpion being so young and alive, and Sub-Zero, to me, looking a bit older, that it just has me thinking, like, is this actually Bi-Han? Because I've wanted this for a long time, honestly. I remember back in, like, the MKX days, like, the early MKX days, I was, like, for a little bit, I was convinced that the default Sub-Zero in MKX was Bi-Han, and that, like, at the end of MK9, when Noob got sucked into the Solnado, I thought, oh, like, because obviously last we saw of Sub-Zero, like, Kuai Liang, he was a cyborg, and obviously we didn't know that got completely retconned at the time, so it was, like, it's just putting two and two together, being like, did Noob get completely, like, cleansed in the Solnado, and now he's back as Sub-Zero? Obviously that wasn't the case, and I remember being a bit disappointed by that. But, you know, this could actually happen now. Like, this could actually genuinely be, like, Bi-Han. And I think that would be so sick if that was. Like, that, honestly, like I said, more than anything, that would blow my mind the most about this game. Like, if they actually, like, had, like, just brought back, you know, Bi-Han. I do wonder what that would mean for Kuai Liang, but I have a little theory, like, that I'll get to at the end of this trailer, or near the end of this trailer when a certain character shows up. But yeah, at the moment, I'm kind of like, I'm not banking on it. I'm not like, oh, you know, I'm not hardcore like, oh, this is 100%, you know, Bi-Han, but I'm kind of leaning towards this being Bi-Han, so if that is the case, that'll be really exciting. So, you know, once this part with Scorpion and Sub-Zero is over, like, everybody stops to look at this, like, glowing orange circle in the sky, and then finally we see, like, Fire God Liu Kang, he comes down and he meets with Human Raiden and Kung Lao, and a portal opens up, and who steps through it but Shang Tsung, and he is confirmed at the end of this trailer and on the website to be the pre-order bonus character. And I've always been not a defender of the pre-bonus character, but you know, I've always thought it was cool. It was an interesting thing. Like, oh, here's this like super big boss character. Like for MKX, it was Goro. For MK11, it was Shao Kahn. And I was kind of wondering who they were going to do for 12. I was kind of split between like Kintaro and maybe Onaga. It's kind of like, you know, big, kind of like a big boss character for the pre-order bonus. But Shang Tsung is the pre-order bonus character, and I think that's pretty weak. Honestly, I think as a choice, I think that's just a weak choice. I think mainly because he was in 11, he was DLC in 11. And, you know, Shang Tsung is the original, he's the original boss and all that, and I do respect that, but, like, I don't know, I feel like going from Shao Kahn to Shang Tsung as the pre-order bonus, I think is pretty weak. Like, I just don't think it's a good choice, really. I think it's a bit disappointing. I think it's a bit slap in the face to the fans who paid for him as DLC and are now going to have to pre-order the game to get him again. But, you know, it's whatever. It's the choice has been made. Can't really go against it now. But I just want to say, I just think it's a bit of a weak choice. But the one thing I want to talk about the most here is Shang Tsung, and there's no real clear indicator here whether or not this is the case or not. But the other ending at the end of MK11 Aftermath, because you had the one ending which was Fire God Liu Kang, he meets the Great Kung Lao. We know that's canon because this is literally so far like this trailer is what this is. That's continuing off of that ending. But we also had the other ending where Shang Tsung wins, and he basically kidnaps Raiden and Fujin and basically says he's going to take over the Chaos Realm and the Order Realm next. Very exciting, but, you know, I think deep down at the time we all knew they weren't really going to do that much with the Order Realm or the Chaos Realm anytime soon. So, you know, that was one of those things we were like, oh, that's a fun little, like, neat alternate ending. But I heard a couple people, like, suggest this before the trailer of, like, what if the premise of the game is, like, the Liu Kang ending versus the Shang Tsung ending, in the sense that, like, both are canon, and, like, Shang Tsung, at some point, his ending, his universe, his timeline, where he took over, he controlled everything, he ruled, you know, all the realms and that. What if, like, that ending like also happened, and basically Shang Tsung's universe and timeline is now going to try and attack the Liu Kang, like the Fire God Liu Kang ending. And I'm wondering if that's actually going to be the case here, and that this Shang Tsung that is coming through this portal is actually the same Shang Tsung from his ending in MK11 Aftermath. Because if that's the case, that would really like open the door to a lot of interesting matchups, is like in terms of the roster and the story. And this is what I was kind of like hinting at earlier with the Sub-Zero thing. Like, what if in the Fire God Liu Kang universe, Bi-Han is Sub-Zero, because in that timeline, Quan Chi was never involved, he never screwed over everybody, he never tricked everybody, he didn't trick, Sub-Zero. I can't remember for sure if he tricked Sub-Zero into killing Scorpion, but basically, like, no Quan Chi means no Shinnok. No Shinnok means it's like, Scorpion didn't die, and then Scorpion's family didn't die, and then Scorpion didn't come back and kill Bi-Han, and then Bi-Han didn't become noob. None of that's happened now. Now it's like Scorpion's still a young ninja in the Shirai Ryu, the Shirai Ryu's alive, and Bi-Han is still Sub-Zero, and all that. And you have that, and then that's the Fire God Liu Kang universe, but then maybe as an alternate skin, or as an alternate character, or whatever, we get Kuai Liang, like, the main universe Sub-Zero that we had in like MKX and 11, and sort of like from the Shang Tsung Aftermath universe, and like so that way we get both Sub-Zeros. I don't know, it's just an idea I've had, kind of like basing it off what other people said, combined with this stuff of Shang Tsung entering through the portal. So we'll have to see how that goes. I think that could end up being the case, but we'll have to see, of course. But we basically at this point get a very, very brutal fatality montage that was just, oh man, it was just like the sound effects on this was just top tier by NetherRealm. This was like honestly, it was more horrifying to listen to than it was to actually watch. So that was amazing. But yeah, basically just a really cool montage here. Get some just horrible gore going on. Shang Tsung's just basically just killing everybody that we've seen in the trailer so far. I would honestly I think most of these are probably going to end up being fatalities in the game itself. But then Liu Kang finishes off the trailer and finishes off Shang Tsung with a absolutely sick fatality, which I am pretty convinced is actually going to be one of Liu Kang's fatalities in the game itself, because this is a thing that has happened in quite a few of the cinematic trailers. I think definitely the case in X and 11. I can't remember if MK9 had one, but basically we always got to see like Scorpion's fatality in the CG trailer, like the main kill to end the trailer on was always like Scorpion's fatality, and obviously the final kill here is Liu Kang, so I'm pretty sure this kill here is going to be Liu Kang's, which I think is sick. I think this is an awesome fatality. Already off to a good start in that sense, in terms of like rating fatalities and all that. And then we get the logo and the reveal that this is Mortal Kombat 1. And that's basically the trailer. It ends with, the announcement of the Shang Tsung pre-order bonus, but I've already gone over that. And that's basically the trailer. And I think it was a sick trailer. Like, I was really blown away by it. I think this is easily the best out of all the CG MK trailers. I'd honestly even go as far as to say this is better than the Injustice ones as well. Like, I think this is just easily better than all the other CG trailers they've done. So yeah, really, really sick trailer. Cannot wait to see more. So I'm kind of going to go over a bit of the FAQ now and just kind of go into some details that I kind of missed, especially the Cameo system, which is kind of confusing, but I'll kind of just go into what they say about it now. So yeah, like outside of like the stuff about the Cameo fighters, which I'm going to talk about now, the only other real thing they go into like in the FAQ is stuff I've already covered, mainly like the release and stuff like that, and a bunch of like release info and additions that I'm not going to bother getting into now because I don't really think it's relevant in terms of like there's nothing really to discuss there. If if you were around for MK11's reveal and the release, you'll probably know exactly what the additions are and stuff like that in the combat pack. They also mention the characters, but like I said earlier, they mention everybody that was in the trailer, as well as Johnny Cage, and they say and many others, because of course it's not just going to be those. So the bit about Cameo fighters, and this was very kind of like thrown in there, kind of like it was mentioned very, very briefly in the website, but they have a bit more detail now. So the website mentions something called Cameo fighters, and then the description of it on the FAQ is this. Cameo fighters are a unique roster of partner characters to assist during matches, creating expanded gameplay possibilities for players. These characters are chosen separately from the main roster of fighters. So first of all, this to me immediately makes it sound like that these are basically going to be like the modifiers you would get in MK11 in the Towers of Time. Like for example, if you used like the Cyrax net modifier in the towers. If you used it during a match, like a Cyrax like net would just come off screen and wrap around the opponent or whatever. I think that's going to be the same thing here, but I basically think what this is saying is that in this case, for the Cameo fighters, like instead of just the net coming from off screen, like Cyrax is actually going to jump into the match, throw out the net, and then leave. That's basically this is what that sounds like to me. So the fact they say that this is, these characters are going to be chosen separately from the main roster, to me screams that basically all the unpopular Mortal Kombat characters that like basically the main like masses don't really know or care about, basically anyone that wasn't from MK1 to 3. Basically, like, if they were from 1 to 3, like, they're pretty likely to be the base roster or at least DLC at some point. But if it's like a 3D era character like a Kai or a Movado or a Draben or stuff like that, I feel like those characters are pretty much like they're going to be cameo fighters and they're not going to be playable. Like, you're just going to get stuck with modifiers or the cameo fighters or whatever they're called, which I think is a shame. But at the same time, it's like, these characters weren't probably going to be in anyway. Like, as much as I champion for Kai, and I said in the video I did a while ago about like characters that need to be in the game, as much as I said I would love Kai, I never expected Kai to be in the game. But at the same time, like, if my theory is right and it's like the modifiers but like they actually appear in the match now, maybe we'll actually get to like at least see like the characters in a new engine. And maybe, who knows, if the popularity gets big enough, if people see a character, like if they see like Lee May and who shows up and like, oh, she looks cool, maybe if the demand gets big enough, maybe if there's enough death threats, I'm joking, of course, please don't send death threats, but maybe if there's enough demand, they'll actually like, maybe potentially make them playable down the line. I don't know. So I very much, I need to see this in action before I really like make a full statement on how I feel about it. At the moment, I'm kind of meh. I hope it's optional because I don't really care about it, to be honest. Like, it's the modifiers were fun in MK11, but like I never really like had any desire to use them outside of the towers just to make some of the challenges easier. So making it an actual like main part of the gameplay, I'm a bit mixed on the idea of. Hopefully it actually ends up working well, better than how I imagine it to, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I can't think of anything else really that I can talk about. I've kind of gone into much detail as I can at the moment. This video is probably going to be fairly long. But yeah, man, I'm just so excited. I cannot wait to see gameplay for this. I'm assuming we're going to be getting gameplay next week at the Sony State of Play. I think that's next Wednesday. So yeah, 100% if we see gameplay, I'll be talking about it there. I'll make a video on it going over what we see. But I just can't wait to see this game, man. I'm so excited. I'm so glad Mortal Kombat's back. I've missed it so much these last couple of years. And yeah, I'm going to leave it here. My voice is kind of going dry, getting raspy. I don't know if you can tell or not through the microphone, through the video. But yeah, I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching. If you have, cannot wait to cover this game more in the future. And until then, I shall see you all later. Goodbye.
We await your return, warrior.